This is Decentral Lens, distilling the crypto news you need to know and why.
What's up, everybody? This is Blue, and on my right is Gerard, the fearless leader and CEO of Vivid.
Exactly, yeah. Nice to be here once again. How are you, Blue?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, welcome. This is a special deep dive episode, and I'm super excited because today we have the latest Vivid release with one of the coolest artists that I know on the X timeline, which is Ella, or Bright Light. So Ella, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ella.
Thank you so much for having me. There you go. I know where the mute button is. We're all good. Thank you so much.
No, she's like, I don't want to talk when somebody else is talking, but you can keep it muted, unmuted. You can do whatever you want. But welcome to the show. And, I don't know. I feel like, Gerard, you guys have been on an absolute tear. Obviously, I personally am a huge fan of Shay Dev and all the parent-child provenance you guys are putting in. Like, you guys are cutting edge and thinking as a gallery, and really so much more about generative art on Bitcoin. So why don't you kick us off with Ella, who is the latest drop. In this one, it's not just a Shay Dev. It's way cooler and more interesting than that. So let's get into it.
Exactly, yeah. I'm very excited because we are evolving. We are trying new things, and people seem to like it. So yeah, now we are working with Ella on a project. It's called Vortex. I want to call it Vortex project because it's not only a chef-d'oeuvre, as you said, but we're going to talk about that later. And yeah, very happy to work with Ella. Actually, we met in Rome during our first artist retreat. And I'm very happy to work with her because she has always been a leading voice in the Ethereum ecosystem to push artists and collectors, to collect on-chain art on Ethereum. So she has a lot of experience into that, and now she's interested in ordinals, of course, because if she's interested in on-chain art, well, ordinals was the next big step. So very happy to welcome you, Ella.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be coming over to Vivid because just like with on-chain and fully on-chain art, I should say, on ETH, there are good ways of doing things on ordinals and there are better ways. And obviously you guys taking care to do everything properly with parent-child provenance, the artist seals, actually planning everything out correctly. It's about doing things right. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we connected on that. Exactly, we connected on that, and I actually love this sentence that I found on your X profile. Maybe we can start with that. You said that if you create art with intent, with meaning, it must be fully on chain. And that's what maybe drove you right to ordinals.
Yeah, 100%. When you get into the tech side of things, which don't worry, I'm not here as an insomnia cure tonight. I'm not going to go too heavy onto that. But when you get into the tech side of things and you understand how data storage in blockchain art actually works, you have to ask yourself some really difficult questions. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing art and storing the data on IPFS and selling it through a standard contract if that's what you wish to do. But if you're making something that is extremely meaningful to you and you are highly motivated to make artwork that is going to outlive you, that is going to be your legacy, then you have to seriously look hard at fully on-chain art. And fully on chain means you need to ask questions about which chain you're using, right? So there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, and for me, those two layer one chains are, I think, going to outlive us all. I really do believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. I mean, it's our best shot at digital permanence because you take the average lifespan of a hard drive is what, 6 or 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
How many of us have lost half of our youth because, we've lost photographs, digital photographs that were taken through the years and we've just somehow lost them. And physical stuff gets lost as well. So there's no way of making your work permanent, but you've got to think about how you can give it your best shot, basically. If the work's really important to you and your goal is to try and make something that you want to be your statement to the world.
How did you get orange pilled onto Bitcoin? It sounds like you've already done art on chain for Ethereum, but what made you turn to Bitcoin? And is this your first Bitcoin collection?
Yeah, this is my first Bitcoin collection. I did a couple of one-of-ones earlier on just to test it out, really, just so I could understand it and understand the process. But yeah, getting orange pilled just to me felt like a natural progression. Ordinals came out, I was busy doing other things, and then I started just slowly getting interested and talking to people about it, doing the nerd thing, because let's be honest, generative artists were all kind of a bit nerdy, but talking to
100%.
people about the tech. And what sold it to me was just this idea of being kind of quite emotive and artistic about it. You are literally tattooing the blockchain. It's like you are carving on a penny. That's another analogy I've used. And that carving then becomes like part of the chain forever, you know, just as it does on ETH. So to me, it's like I believe in ETH, I believe in Bitcoin, I put my art on ETH forever. Why would I not put my art on Bitcoin forever? It just has to be done.
What collections have you done on ETH?
I haven't done anything massive. I have done quite a few fairly small, I would say sort of 10, 15 piece collections of one-of-ones on ETH. Three of them so far that are fully on chain. Those I've mostly focused on working in a slightly different style to what I'm presenting here in Vortex. I have done a couple of long form collections on layer twos as well, because actually layer twos are fantastic if you want to experiment and test out ideas. And generative algorithms, I mean, it's a whole art form in itself, making an algorithm kind of do your bidding. It's kind of wild and free. It kind of gets minted, it gets iterated, and it does all this crazy stuff. And you, as the programmer, you don't even realize probably half the different outputs you're going to get. So, yes, I have done a couple of bigger collections on layer twos to test out ideas. And then I've done three much more focused collections of one-of-ones on ETH over the course of the past year or so.
Very cool. So it sounds like were you into crypto before you started experimenting on ETH, or no, you came in as an artist and realized and had people who you talked to kind of show you how cool and permanent and creative this can be?
I came in as an artist in 2021 because NFTs, I actually read about them in a physical newspaper, would you believe it? And it was the motivation for me was at the time, I really, really needed to make some kind of legacy for myself because I was really unwell at the time. Fortunately, I'm much better now. But it was this whole kind of fear of mortality and wanting to leave a mark on the world. And this whole concept of being able to record art on the blockchain just became a complete obsession. Now, when I first came into the NFT space, I did not know the difference between IPFS, Arweave, fully on chain, didn't understand any of that. So I do have, in addition to the collections I mentioned, I did do quite a few early works that were not fully on chain. I think I've been in the space probably about 18 months before I started to understand the differences between the different methods of recording your artwork.
It's a testament though. I feel like artists, collectors, everyone, it's a progression. Like I've been in Bitcoin since 2015 and ETH since, I don't know, 2017 or something, but I didn't get into NFTs until like 2022. So I was a little late to that game and I didn't know the difference. Like I had a Zuki, I just got what I thought was cool and collected as art. And now once you go down that rabbit hole of what IPFS really is, and if you stop paying Pinata or if that company stops paying it, your art is gone. And what people don't realize, on top of IPFS, most ETH smart contracts can also be changed at the top of the mountain, at the top of the stream, where it can, I mean, remember, look what Goblins did. They literally were like, the pointer went somewhere else and it was like, F you, we're moving it to a place that supports royalties. Like the owners or the creators can literally shut the spigot off 100% and then not pay Pinata downstream and it goes off. So that's, to me, that happened for me a year and a half later. It sounds like you had that evolution too, and then you're like, oh, but it almost just hits you like a ton of bricks how important the inscription is and how permanent it is. And on chain ETH too, but I will say on Bitcoin, inscriptions take it even further because there's no choice not to be permanent.
Hmm.
I'd agree with that. And I think as well, it's about understanding the implications and the technical side of it. But more than that, it is about, how can I put it? None of this would have happened without Bitcoin, you know. And when we joined the space, you know, art on Bitcoin just simply wasn't a thing.
Nope.
And then you get to a point where, hang on a minute, it is a thing, you know, and you can be part of that and you can literally leave your mark on kind of the origin, the mother chain, whatever you want to call it. That in itself is a really inspiring prospect, I think. And I think embracing the constraints is really, really important. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, you have to think really hard about what you're minting and you're inscribing. And there are lots of places you can mess up if you don't know what you're doing. That's a thing I think all of us on chainers have faced at some point or another. We've got failed inscriptions or failed mints under our belt that have cost us a lot of money, because that's the learning curve. And once you embrace that and realize that those kind of pressures and constraints actually bring out your best work, because you have to think really, really hard about what you're doing, you embrace that as an artist, because it forces you to be the best version of yourself. And that is immensely valuable, you know, for your own development, I think, and your own sense of satisfaction in your own work.
Yeah, that's really well put. So tell us a little bit, let's go back in time a little bit. How did you get into art and become an artist, and kind of what inspired you and led you to get to this generative, eternal mother chain place that we all know and love?
That is a really long-winded answer right there that I'm going to try and summarize.
I
I was
I
one of
got
the.
time. Gerard, you got time?
It's all
Yeah,
good.
of course.
It's all
Yeah,
good. I'll try and
I
make it.
it just so you know, Ella, as this might sound crazy, Gerard and I were talking about this off the air. Like, I love, as a collector, I love to get to know the artist. I don't need to know everything about him, but it's so interesting to me to kind of see how someone ticks. Like, I like collecting from people that I enjoy, and obviously I'm a sample size of one. Don't take that as as like the gospel, but to me, understanding the person is as, or sometimes even more important than when all these spaces get into the technicals of like, so then, you know, like it almost gets so technical, or just it gets so focused on one piece that people miss the bigger picture of just like, we're all humans and we're all here on earth, some creating more than others, but the ones who create, like, I want to celebrate and know them. So I just gave you a really long-winded caveat to say, you say whatever you want that inspires you, please.
Okay, no, but that's absolutely fair enough, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. It's just that whole British awkward thing we do. But no, I was, you know, like so many of the artists in this space, I don't think this makes me in any way special. Like most of us here, I was making art, you know, from a very early age, just like kids do. You know, I've got kids now as well, and you know, they love to draw, and it's just how you express yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you're learning that fine motor control. And for some people, that develops into a love of physically making art and drawing. And I was
Hmm.
definitely that kid. Later on, you know, I can definitely remember certain points in that journey where art became dramatically more important to me. I used to be really, really good at swimming. I was training 6 times a week, and then injury just stopped all of that overnight. It was like,
Oh, I'm
okay,
sorry.
here I am. I'm
Yeah.
never going to be a competitive swimmer, so I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to do art with my spare time. And it was a release. It was actually, in the end, felt like something really, really positive. And, you know, um, teenager years were kind of traipsing around art galleries, going to as many as I could. I think I've probably been to most of the big ones in Europe at some point or another, just because I badgered my parents to go and I wanted to be there. You know, and later on heading off to art college, you know, which was, you know, like a dream come true in a lot of respects, but also was not a good fit. because I think you're not quite fully formed at 18. You don't
Yeah.
really know where you are in the world. And from going there and kind of then going off and studying a different subject and then taking a kind of corporate path that landed me in technology, it's like those different elements of a kind of tech job and the artistic background just kind of, it then becomes a kind of obvious thing. Once you realize that generative art is a thing, and actually you don't need to just write boring old work stuff with code, you can actually use it to do really cool artistic things as well. It's like, well, this is clearly what I need to do. Enough of the spreadsheets, enough of the little apps that I'm building for people at work and whatever I was doing a few years back. It's like, let's actually do something that's expressive, and it's a natural fit. So I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. Does your competitiveness as a swimmer and that drive and focus that swimmers have? I mean, here, these kids, like, I got kids too, and one of my son's friends is a really good swimmer. And I don't know if it's like this in Britain, but here they swim before school, they swim after school. I think they swim during school. Like, they're always just swimming. Did that competitive drive help with art, or are they almost like yin yang kind of balances where this world in America and this too competitive nature, and art is this more like unfolding of the soul's discovery?
I think, to be fair, the point I, injured out of competition level swimming, I think it was much more about it. We were at the stage where we were very much focused on self-improvement overall, and that's certainly something that was emphasized to me as part of my upbringing. I've always been the sort of person that has to push myself. I am not happy if I'm not learning new things. And this focus I've got now, it's like, you know, people say all the time, how do parents in the space do it? How do people with full-time jobs do it? And I don't see a conflict. I don't have a conflict because I've just dumped all the irrelevant stuff like like drinking and watching TV. I do not have any time to do those things because they're not relevant. So I guess you could say I don't feel myself to be in competition with anyone here in this space. I really, really don't. I think the competition is always, always, always against yesterday's version of you, and making tomorrow's version of you just a tiny bit better than what you were today or yesterday, and that's a very, very strong focus that I have for certain.
Yeah, that's beautifully
That's cool.
put. That is
Hmm.
beautifully put. So it's cool. It sounds like you're saying part of your training was this. I love what you said. It was self improvement. Swimming's a very individualistic sport, like, but obviously it has team elements too, like golf and stuff like that. But it sounds like part of it was this motivation and drive for self improvement, and that can be pivoted to so many parts of your life, and as you mature, you bring that out in other things, and obviously when you get injured, you've got to do that. Were your parents supportive? Were they artists or into art?
Yeah, they were really supportive. Neither of them are visual artists themselves, but they were super supportive. When I had the injury, the first thing they did was take me to an art shop and buy me loads of stuff. I got my first set of proper grown-up watercolors, which was amazing. And later on, it was like, okay, we're going on holiday. We're going to a city in Europe. Like, what art galleries do you want to see? We'll make sure we get there. And even up to the point of applying for art school, a lot of parents would be like, no, don't do that. Go and be a lawyer. Go and be an
Right.
accountant.
Go do something
But they
practical
were
and make
really, really
money.
clear.
One here.
Yeah, definitely. No, and that's okay. It's done with the best of intentions. And I think I kind of needed to realize for myself that, going full time as an artist or into an art focused career was not the best move for me at that point. And I went on to have a successful career in tech. I'm still there now, and everything's kind of worked out. And I think they did a great job. Huge respect and love to them for their support through the years, definitely.
Gerard, were you saying that you also had a similar, like, go be a lawyer, kid, go be a financier,
It was even worse for me. It was like you better work out things with your brain because you are not going to work with your hands. When I started playing the guitar, I sucked so much. But yeah, I was a child, and For me, it was more okay. Let me try. But then I tried again when I was 18, and now I play quite well. Well, I can defend myself. But yeah, when I was a child, my parents told me, "Bro, stop this. You
Yeah.
need to work with your brain."
Yeah, my dad was an engineer and he wanted me to have a technical degree. I'll go as far as that, and I got it through college. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to do whatever I want. So I got your technical degree that you wanted me to get, and now I'm completely not going to use it. And I went into the entertainment business. So I think it's cool to hear, Ella, that your parents were so
Yes.
supportive, because Durech had a great post like a month ago, and he was just like, just curious, everybody out there, like, supportive parents or not. And I like, that was to me what Twitter's so degen now, but I was like, that's what Twitter's for. It's like bringing artists together, because I wasn't supported, neither was I. Well, I was, and like people talked about it. And I just think it's so cool to understand kind of like, is it, was it a fight and a rebellion from the parents, or was it like super supportive, and the kid was allowed to blossom and focus and be whoever they were? So we appreciate you sharing your story.
Mm.
It's super interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, George, should we get into to Vortex now?
Well, of course. Actually, I was going to say that Ella started her journey on ordinals, going fully on chain first, but also here the equivalent for me of on chain art on Ethereum on ordinals would be like using blockchain data. And Ella came to us and say, okay, I want to do something connected to Bitcoin data. And she made it, and actually in a very elegant way, representing the concept really well. So I'm very excited. Let's go, Ella. Maybe you can start. For me, I always prefer to start talking about the concept, and then how you create the aesthetics and all the technical aspects, how they connect to that concept. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can try. It's like it's taken me best part of a year to unscramble this in my head. But essentially, I have this whole thing. Obviously, those of you that know blockchain, fine well, it works because it's a deterministic system, right? There are hard rules, no matter whether they're incomprehensible to us or not. It is a fixed deterministic system. If you know the inputs, you can calculate the outputs. And you know, I was looking at things occurring in the natural world. It was around about this time last year, actually, when I got the inspiration for this. It was seeing specifically a feather that I ended up looking at for ages, but well, you can kind of see that in the artwork, but also leaves on the breeze, leaves falling in the wind in autumn and being blown around. I'm lucky enough to live in a really beautiful area with lots of trees. So this time of year, it's just leaf central. And you observe the leaves kind of floating and twisting on the wind. And it's like they seem so free, they seem like they're dancing. But when you actually zoom out, every single movement, every tiny little twist and turn, when you think about it, is completely predetermined by the rules of nature, simple laws of physics. You've got gravity, you've got the wind force, you've got all the other, different rules that apply in that scenario. And it led me to this kind of realization that the whole of nature is generative art. Even up to, I would say, probably most animals as well. And then you start asking yourself the really, really hard question, which is, are we free? Because we have free will. We think we have free will. We go out and we make decisions every single day. Like, you were kind enough to make the decision to invite me on this show. I made a decision to make an art collection. Everything we do, we think we're deciding. But are we really making those choices? It kind of links back. I probably should have given you a bit of a content warning that after I did art school, I went and studied philosophy.
Ah, I
So
love
yeah,
it. No, this is what
And
I want to
everything.
hear for sure. So, do you think we're free?
I believe that actually, in the end, it doesn't matter because we experience freedom, and therefore choices, whether they're actually real in a sense that it's external to ourselves and our understanding of the world, our choices do matter, because we think we're making them. Therefore, morality does apply. You can choose to make good decisions or bad decisions. You can choose to better yourself, or you can choose to do the opposite of that, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, but we have to proceed as if it's true, even if we were later to find out that it isn't.
That every decision, even though in my arc where I'm the hero of my little journey, I I look back at my life, I think I'm getting better as a person. And like you said, I can't control everything about my environment, but I can make choices and how I respond to them. You're saying you maybe in the end, when we're life reviewing and we're all the great universal whole that we know we all are, the great, whatever you want to call it, like the God particle, you look back and we didn't even make our decisions. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know is the answer, but I do know that it's very, I think, important to be humble enough and open-minded enough to ask these questions. And I did not want to give a definitive answer with this collection. This is not a thesis.
Yeah,
It's
it's just for
shining
you
a
to
light
open
on
your
it,
eyes.
you know? Yeah,
You just
exactly.
want to
And
open your eyes.
do you not find it really interesting, a kind of paradox, that we talk about crypto as being the means by which we're all set free, which in a lot of ways it is, but we're set free within a deterministic system. You know,
Yeah,
it's just
it's a
madness.
funny
Anyway, look,
question. People usually react in a very funny way when you are asked these kind of questions. Yeah, are you free? Are we really free? Do we have free will? But here, the point of Vortex for me, it's not really to answer that question, and I think that you just answered that. It's not answering that question, but it's just to make you realize that yes, there are forces that are pulling your decisions that you may not be aware of completely. You will never be, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that you can just chill and everything will happen to you. It's already written. It doesn't work like this. But at least once you realize that, I think that you can live your life in a more calm way. Like, okay, everything that I do, I will try to do my best. Nature forces will pull me into maybe one direction or another, but at least I have the free will to react to that forces.
Yeah. And I think
100%.
yeah, and now that we're entering this kind of new age, I think we have officially entered the age of Aquarius. I mean, just look at this election, and obviously I'm not going into politics, but I'm just saying some people were happy, some people think the world's ending, and 4 years ago it was probably a little more flip-flopped. And as I get older, it's kind of the first time in my life I'm like, obviously I have preferences, but also I am going to be in the world and react to it. I can't control it. I can't change outcomes, but I can change how I perceive the outcomes. And it's brought a lot more peace to kind of my day-to-day life.
Hmm. I love that, and I actually think that Vortex is a perfect animated artwork for this, because so now we're gonna go into deeper into that topic. But it reacts to blockchain data, and how it reacts. It just has simple rules that will affect the animation based on the block number. So in theory, you could plan how it's gonna look like in X blocks or something like this. So you could that algorithmically, but your brain is never gonna inscribe those patterns. So you will always be surprised, but at the same time, that this is already written. So it just makes you realize that fact.
Ella, you also realize that Gerard and I will do a show together, and then I get more FOMO than anybody, and I'm like, I gotta have this, I gotta buy it. So last time
Oh, God.
we did it on Eternal Tide Shade F2, and I had to win it, and I did. So, but
Congratulations.
this is thank you. Yeah, now that I have, it's like by far my favorite piece of art. But this is fascinating, and we're looking at a rotating screen right here of just different vortex patterns. But vortex, when this is fully inscribed, correct me if I'm wrong, it will be in motion and it will be tied in with blocks and how busy the blocks are and certain data on the blocks. Is that accurate? And can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely important that people understand, if they're considering the collection, that they understand it is a dynamic artwork. So it literally listens to the block number. It checks every 15 seconds to see if there's a new block number. And if there's a new block number, it checks to see if there are any patterns in that data. So there are three main patterns and a kind of bonus one, which I'll quickly run through. So Vortex is called Vortex because of something called Vortex mathematics, which is not really a formal branch of mathematics. It's kind of a system that was made up by people, where a bunch of simple rules are applied by adding digits together, and drawing straight lines according to these simple rules. I don't want to go too far into that because it's super kind of weird. But basically, the whole process itself of creating these patterns, these feathers, they are 100% constructed from straight lines according to Vortex mathematics. If you really get into the weeds of the code, there's a very precise logic, and you draw straight lines according to these rules, and you end up with these really organic forms. And that was done very deliberately to bring to life this point I'm trying to make about simple rules give rise to complex organic things, and the whole of nature is basically generative art when you think about it. So that's kind of the point of making these feathers and using Vortex math specifically to do it. So the feathers and their colours, they are determined by the seed, the number, the size, the colour, and the structure of them, which is quite difficult to see unless you really zoom in. But basically, they dance and twist on the winds, and the winds are basically their environment, and the environment is the blockchain data. So the code is looking for the the block numbers, sorry, and when it finds a pattern, it does different things. So if it finds what I call a vortex number, which according to the rules of vortex math is a number that does not contain the digits 3, 6, or 9, it creates a kind of 3D pattern to show the feathers being kind of forced to spin around the central point, which I guess you could call a vortex really if you want. If there is a repeating sequence of numbers within the block number, they make this kind of figure eight motion, which you can see with the blue and orange feathers there. Again, there
Yeah,
are other
Blue, actually,
variables kind of baked in.
you can
Um,
scroll down a little bit, and there are all the examples of the rules. Yeah, that are here,
there we go.
as you can see. Yeah, maybe this will
Oh.
illustrate a little bit what you're saying, Ella.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I ran ahead there. You don't want to let me run on too much about the technical stuff.
No, no, no,
So you've
no.
got
We
vortex
want you
pattern.
to run on about all of this. This is fascinating to if it's only fascinating to me and Gerard, that doesn't matter. Like people are into this. This is super cool.
Of course.
That's cool. So yeah, you've got vortex numbers that look like a globe. You've got repeating sequences that create this figure eight dance. You've got numbers that do not fall into either of those two categories. They have a kind of random movement where the feathers are basically free because there's no discernible pattern, but they're not. So they try to escape. Each feather has a pair, and its twin is basically trying to chase it, and the lead feather is trying to escape, so they kind of bounce off the frame and go off in a different tangent. There are other little variables baked in to kind of control how that works. Yeah, if they ever escape from the frame at any point, they kind of get sucked back in slowly over time, which is fun. And of course, if you have a palindrome number, which is incredibly rare and special, it also does something a little bit cute as well. So I
Yeah.
think I've probably run on a little bit too much about these feathers now, though.
No, it's cool, but it shows like what I love about this and just generative art, especially that's tied in to how the blockchain evolves, is that these different patterns create different forms of art. I think to me, this is the most exciting things going on in generative art where it is always evolving over time. So anyone who gets a piece from this collection, as the blockchain evolves, so does their art, correct?
That's correct. The
Yeah.
same basic patterns that I've described will come up over and over again over time. For example, I think it's something slightly less than 20% of all combinations will be vortex numbers. So it will be a 3D shape, probably about 20% of the time. A repeating sequence, I think, comes up. I forget how often it is. It depends whether you've got a 6 or a 7 digit block number. So yeah, over time, your iteration, your feathers will always look the same. They'll be the same number and the same color, but their dance and their behavior will kind of move through the different choreographies and transitions. Because when it moves from one block number to another, it has to
Hmm.
reposition itself, which is also another headache to code, but was a lot of fun when I finally got it done. I hope I'm
What
making
was the
sense.
biggest headache to code?
The transitions between the different states, because they're moving from 2D to
Oh,
3D back again. Trying to make that graceful took me about a month.
wow. It and
Plus
you
the complementary rules, right? Because there are some numbers that are gonna be affected by different rules.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of different elements to it. You will see over the course of a 24-hour period, you'll always see variation because the last digit of the block number from 0 to 9 obviously controls the overall speed of movement. So you'll see it going slowly and quickly throughout the course of the day, even if it's in, say, um, if it's in the non-vortex state for quite an extended period of time, which it could be, depending on the conditions.
So
Hmm.
each block, the blocks without a 3, 6, or 9. So like if you're in block, 36,234,000 or whatever, like it's going to stay in Vortex for a while, but oh no, it won't ever, only every 9. It has to have that 9 in there too. But if it has, this is fascinating. Like, see, I could get like, you're like, yeah,
That's
that's
the
enough
beauty
on
of
that. And I'm
the
like, dude,
artwork.
yeah, I've already jumped, like I'm down like
Right.
9 rabbit holes with my
But
brain.
it forces you to look at it, and that's also what I like because it also connects to the concept. You want to be looking at what the feather are going to look like almost, yeah, always, because you may miss an important moment that is affected by three different rules, and it only happens, I don't know, once a year. I don't know exactly how frequent those patterns are going to repeat, but that tells you also a lot about your life. Don't you want to be doing things and watching, maybe interpreting what's happening to you at all time, just so you realize that maybe you are in a special moment and you need to take advantage of that moment right now and not after, not in 10 minutes, not in 1 hour.
I should add, actually, we did code in that you can pull up the traits by pressing a menu button. You can pull up an overlay to show you the current block number. You can also take a screenshot by hitting a key, so you can download a PNG at any time. And I think the amazing tech guys at Vivid have also found a way to enable MP4 capture, so collectors would be able to capture, a short video clip from the algorithm as well if they wish to do so.
Exactly.
God, yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
going to be very important for people.
yeah, this is so neat. So where should we go now? Like I honestly I want to keep asking questions about that. So like each well, you know what? Let's get into the collection, Gerard. Like let's get into kind of the hierarchy. Because I think that'll spur a lot more questions. Because you guys, this Shea Dev this is a part of the Shea Dev collection, but it's so much
Okay.
more. Like you guys are really even evolving what Shea Dev even means, which is so cool. So tell us about that, so we can kind of see the breakdown of how things are going to
Uh,
look.
exactly. So, well, this project, this algorithm, I always want to present that as an algorithm, even if it's not that sexy for the communication purposes. But yeah, this algorithm, this Vortex algorithm, is, you can play with it in very different ways, and actually a lot of generative artists will resonate with that. They start working on an algorithm, they may create something very weird, and we're like, oh no, this output was extreme, I put it away and I never look at it back.
Right.
But when we thought about it, and when we were experimenting with Shadev, the idea was, okay, well, we want to render the algorithm in an infinite way, so we don't miss anything from that algorithm. But then we pushed things a little bit further and said, okay, when you have an algorithm, you can tweak it a little bit and maybe include another feature, maybe some special color palettes or whatever, that may not look nice for an entire collection, but for special editions, that would be very interesting to explore. So that's the second layer that we introduced to a typical curated collection that we were doing before. Second layer, special editions, and then, as you already know, the chef-d'œuvre. Okay, how do we render the algorithm in a very unique and special way so that it shows the entire potential of the algorithm? And here, the idea is we create some outputs, but we also create the chef-d'œuvre that will render the algorithm, the main algorithm, in a different way. It's going to produce sort of created outputs in an infinite way, but they are not going. It's not going to look like created outputs. You know what I mean? Well, of course, once we will reveal the aesthetics, people will understand. But that's the direction that we want to take with Vivid. How can we just take the algorithm and exploit his entire potential? You know, not only doing a collection, not only doing an infinite render, but yeah, how can we play with it in different forms?
I love that. So basically, the chef-d'œuvre will be the overarching algorithm, but you're saying it's not that simple where these are just, because then that would limit these special editions and the collection to just outputs of that. They are
Exactly.
they are branches, they are related to, but the chef-d'œuvre, the main algorithm, if you will, is its own living, breathing creature. Because even the individual pieces, as Ellis said, have that evolution on the chain. They're always morphing, they're always changing for eternity. Chez Dev
Mhm.
is almost like it's like the breather of life. It brings it all together into one
Exactly.
unified collection. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair, and I love the metaphor of the tree, where you have the base, then the branch, and all the feathers. It really works like this. And when you, maybe we can talk a little bit about the special editions, because that's also going to be very, very important. So that's, for me, like the second layer. It's going to be quite a more rare, more exclusive piece to collect. And what we wanted to do here is, okay, we can play with the algorithm in different ways. We can include another feature. We can play with color palettes. That's the thing that people will understand and see directly. You know. So, but if Ella is doing that on her own, well, it's interesting. But maybe what we can do is collaborate with other artists that are going to study, interpret that algorithm, and say, you know what, with my style, my interpretation, I think that we could make a piece that will look like this. Okay. And that's what we are doing with the special editions here, where six different artists are collaborating on six special editions, and are going to represent them in a way. Okay. And from the technical point of view, this is going to be an innovation on Ordinals, because we are playing with parent-child link. For us, parent-child is the most important thing that we can do today to inscribe art on chain. But for people to realize how important that is, we thought about, okay, what if we include the special editions in the same collection, but as they are also part of a collaboration, they are also linked to the artist seal collaborating here. And that
Mm.
shows to everyone that parent child is super important for provenance, because it will not only be linked to the parent of the collection, but also for the artist seal. And it gives the value that collectors want to have in the long run.
God, this is amazing. So basically, in a lot of our audience, I feel like people who are into generative art are just starting to talk about this. I know you guys have been talking about it for a while. Casey's actually really starting to talk about it a lot now. Casey Rodmore, obviously
Mhm.
the inventor of ordinals, but like for this one, so Ella Bright Light has her own seal. You're
Mhm.
saying Vivid has its own top seal, which says Vivid. It's the top Vivid seal, and then under that, those are both the parents, because
Mhm.
it's a collaboration, and then the Vortex collection is a child of Vivid and obviously Ella. So that shows, for like Ella was saying about this eternal art lasting forever, and hard drives break and all that stuff. This will always be tied to those parents, so there's authenticity. What we saw with ordinals at first, like I loved Ella's explanation, like tattoos, like there is so much garbage on the Bitcoin blockchain. There's so much bad art, and there's probably every bored ape on there 1,000 times. It's just like copy pasta, copy pasta. But that to me almost makes the people like Ella and you creating this beautiful generative art for what Bitcoin can do within all that garbage. It's almost like you have to go back in the cave and find those drawings that got preserved, that didn't have any wind or water get in, and that's even harder to do with these seals. And I think over time this is going to get more and more important.
Yeah, I think it's going to be maybe the most important thing when you think in hundreds or even thousands of years, because let's imagine in 1,000 of years, people want to study our era. Okay, they want to know how we lived and what we were doing. Well, Bitcoin may be one of the most useful things to study in order to understand that, because we have inscribed things there. And one of the easiest thing for them to start studying, maybe the most relevant things that have been done, well, it can be by the number of connections. Okay, how many connections this inscription has? And that's what we are trying to do with Vivid, and that's why it's so important for us to have these all these links with the parents, with the artist seals, with the gallery seal, because all of that create links, and people then can check and say, okay, this inscription has hundreds of links. It must be relevant. It must be important in a way. So maybe it's going to attract the eyes first.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's just so fascinating. I was trying to get to your parent seal quickly, but I won't try and do it on the fly and find it. But this is so cool. And Ella, I just think it's so fitting, especially with, you talk about philosophy and you talk about feathers and you talk about like free will or not, that, this is Shade of 4, but really it's an evolution of even that. You can't even define it as like a shade dev, which I love that you're already breaking. Like you made a mold like a month and a half ago, and you're like, no, there's a cooler way to do it. Let's have, and the fact that her seal is next to yours for the collection, but then you have these other artists seal who also get to use the beautiful art, an algorithm that she and all of you made, to tie it all together, where there's this journey, like you said, in 1,000 years where someone goes through, and that in itself will tell a story. It's beautiful.
Exactly. And you can inscribe everything. You can put metadata to maybe uh, explain a little bit more about all those links. You can say, okay, Bright Light Seal here is signing as the artist, and well, Vivid is signing as the gallery who participated in the promotion of that art. Uh, and the special editions, well, they are part of the Vortex collection, but another artist has also participated into that. And that's the whole idea also about Vortex, is also showing to people, maybe to a lot of Ethereum collectors, why ordinals are great. If you forget about the on-chain thing, if you forget about the mother chain, well, for art, you finally have a solution that is very, very elegant to mark the provenance. One of the biggest problems in art is the provenance, and here you solve it. And we are onboarding artists, inscribing their artist seal, making them participating into that collection, sending them back the seals so they can use it if they want to build something on ordinals. But that will be the beginning for them, like for most of the artists, that'll be their introduction to ordinals.
Right.
And I invite every artist to just start, inscribe their seal, and play with it. Okay, start inscribing things, because If in 100 years people, for whatever the reason, think that you were relevant as an artist, well, they will want to look at everything that you have done, everything that you have touched. Like
Right.
they will want it, and they will want to expose it.
Yeah, it's so cool. Ella, what was it cool to work with, having made this art and, worked with Vivid on all the algorithms and everything. What was it like to have other artists kind of join in this party, for lack of a better phrase?
Okay, so that is a really interesting question, to be fair. So I initially spoke to Gerard and the team way back in the spring about this concept, and then we discussed it further in the summer when I went to meet them in Rome. But by the time, those discussions had taken place, the concept had become more fully formed at that point. I went away and did a whole bunch of work by myself, and then kind of brought that back to them at the end of the summer. And then from there, the work with the technical team in Vivid was very smooth, because obviously they're not looking at things more from an artistic perspective. They're looking at it from an engineering perspective. Have we figured out the frame rate? Have we figured out this? Have we figured out that? But the art side of things was interesting. And for me, it was super simple for two reasons. One, we kept it simple. So there is a very obvious visual difference for the special collaborative pieces. I think it might be obvious if you look at the teaser tweet that Gerard posted today from the Vivid account. And this is going out tomorrow, so I assume it will be obvious by then. But they all have a circle frame instead of a square. So visually they're distinct, and also the artists chose they're choosing the colours that are used. There are unique palettes for each artist, so that makes it visually distinct as well. It was easy to work with because obviously, number one, we kept it fairly simple. They didn't actually have to do a lot of arguing with me back and forth that would then cause me to go away and do a whole bunch of recoding of the algorithm. Um, the second reason it was simple is because I picked people that I'm close to. The on-chain ETH community is very, very strong. It's not particularly big, and we're all pretty close to each other. So it was a really easy task to reach out to people that I already have established relationships with, that I know will bring positivity and support to anything we work on together. And we all have experience of working together with on-chain ETH drops as well. So it was very, very smooth and very, very simple. Just trying to explain to them the concept of how seals work and parent-child stuff. I left all that to Vivid because that's where it got hard.
Yeah, and when we got cut off earlier, Gerard went into that. But it's so cool now that you've explained that these artists are people that, it's not just anybody or like, hey, that's a good artist. Let's see if they're interested. Okay, cool. It's like these are friends of yours, and that parent-child connection that you will have with your artist seal with Vivid and Gerard's team, and with your fellow artists, especially it sounds like you're saying some of them are also newer to the space, so they get to create their seal. Like there's excitement here in them going on this journey with you, whether it's free will or predetermined. Like we'll all find out maybe on our deathbed. I don't know, but that's so cool that in 1,000 years your seals will be next to you in your immutable art, and these special editions will all be interlinked for people to, I was going to say study, but study is such a lame word because it's like, hey, in the future we're all going to be studied for the zeitgeist that this was. But it's the discovery, and the discovery is interconnected, just like humanity is. It's super cool.
Definitely. And it's wider than that. I think it's not about anybody. I don't think many artists in this space have this view that they're going to be historically important, because we know that, like, 99.999% of us, won't be the next Picasso or whatever, because that's one in a million shot, right? But the point is, we did the best we could to do something that was meaningful to us, and in doing so, we chose the best tech and the best structure and the best methods and tools available to us at the time. You know, we tried to do what we could in the best way that we possibly could. And I should add as well that although we couldn't collaborate with everybody I wanted to collaborate with, every single color palette in the collection it's been given a name which probably seems quite random, but it's not, and that is it's like a little in joke or a shout out to somebody that I'm close to in the space, because I very, very much believe that in Web3 and in life in general, we don't get anywhere on our own. Art is by its nature kind of mostly a solo practice, necessarily so. But we progress through life, in collaboration with other people. That's how the world works. And I wanted to kind of shout out to my friends, both the collaborators who've helped me with these special pieces, and also the wider kind of group of fully on chainers who've kind of supported my journey as I've supported theirs.
Can you give me a name or two of the color palettes? Now I'm dying to hear them.
Let's go, Ella.
I'm not allowed, am I?
Is
Who are
she?
we
Of course,
revealing
now,
now?
now
I
you
don't.
are with Blue. You are allowed to say whatever you
Hey.
want. Of course.
Well, we do have we do have Doc T. We're allowed to mention Doc, aren't we? Famously known for the yellow. So absolutely beautiful, probably one of my favourites. And some of you who appreciate fully on chain art will also be aware of Did, who obviously did Machine and the Ghost back in the summer with Vertu Fine Art. So some of you will know Did from that collection. Outstanding collection and really, really interesting conceptual work there. So I'm proud to call both of those guys my friends. And that leaves 4 as yet to be revealed. Reasonable?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
great
it.
artists. I'm not sure that Blue knows them because they are Blue. Are you familiar with a lot of Ethereum artists or no? Not
Yeah,
at all.
some. I mean, I've
Yes. Okay.
got some chain left. I got yeah, but I mean, I followed art blocks for a while, but I'm not. uh, I didn't recognize those names, but maybe I just didn't hear them correctly.
Well, those are not our blog's artists. I wanted to say that
No,
these are all artists, but maybe
but
that.
you mentioned Chain Left, and I think Chain Left has been a catalyst in bringing this space together. And I certainly met most of the fully on chainers initially through my contact in Chain Left's Discord. So yeah, actually interesting that you brought him up. But yes, we're very much from that community.
On the other side of my screen right here, I have a mural, which is a great like digital canvas that shows art that can actually move. And Chain Left is one of the ones that's it rotates, but that's one of the main ones that's always on there. So big fan of him, big fan of his art. Um, Super cool. So just to recap, to make sure I get kind of the hierarchy right, there are 119 limited edition piece. Those will go on. That's private sale, and though that's now correct.
Exactly, yeah. So we started the private sale a few days ago. So we're starting communicating about the algorithm, and I invite everyone that's interested. If they want to collect one piece, we are open to everyone. Of course, we are giving priority to the Vivid collectors and Ella's collectors. That's normal. But yeah, we have more than 50% now of the pieces reserved. So from the 119.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if someone is interested, you just need to go to the website, and there is a little form to complete, and then we can do the private sale on our Discord. You'll see it's pretty easy. So that's going to be the first step, the created pieces.
And for
Then we're going
those,
to
just
jump
to
up.
interrupt, for those listening, not watching, that's vivid, vivid.gallery/collections
Exactly.
slash vortex. So just go to vivid.gallery and you'll find Vortex right there on the homepage. But there is a private sale and WL form right at the top of the page. Okay, so that's the
Exactly.
119. That's number one. And then we've got, it is next our 6.
Exactly, the 6 special editions. So the idea is in the upcoming days, now we are finalizing the seals inscriptions and of the 6 artists. So we are going to start revealing them, showing also their seals, so educating people on that. Okay, guys, as artists, we are inscribing the artist seals, and those are going to be the ones collaborating on the special editions. And then after the special editions, we will offer to collect the chef d'oeuvre. So we will also need to explain a little bit how it's going to look like, what's the difference and the special features, how it is rendered differently. That's going to be also very important. But only one collector will be able to get that, so it's gonna be difficult for you to get that.
Yeah, I love that you're building up to the one, because it sounds like you're saying the collection too in and of itself, from the 119 um, private sale to the six, special artists that Ella is personally close and connected to then the one. To me, it just feels like a nice natural journey. And Ella, obviously you've been in the art scene for a long time, even before generative art. Are there any comparisons? Like, can IRL paint on canvas or any type of art sculpture, is there any parallel to what is being done on chain?
I think you can bring pretty much. Sorry for that background noise there. Please excuse me. I think you can bring pretty much any type of art on chain. I think we saw this week there was a drop of. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It was high res PNGs. It was Zoe Louise who did the roses dipped in paint. Absolutely stunning collection. But that was very much traditional artwork. So doing this work in real life, photographing it, reducing it as far as you're comfortable with, and then putting that on chain. Yeah, of course, you can do that with any artwork. If you want to put 3D assets on chain, you can use, you could take a simple recording of them, or even more than that, you could just use 3JS JavaScript library to basically render on chain as a generative piece. So yeah, you can do any kind of artwork on chain, but generative art is special because it hooks directly into the blockchain itself. It cannot exist as it is without the blockchain itself. And I'm honestly very, very fascinated by blockchain itself, and the concepts that are kind of weaving in my head around this whole idea of it being a reflection of life. It's an ecosystem, the blockchain, and that's what I was trying to explore in my collection, basically. So I think the answer is I don't want to come across like I'm gatekeeping and saying, no, this kind of thing cannot be done in other environments. I, but kind of to an extent, I think with the particular type of artwork, it does have to be on chain. The structure of the drop, of course, and everything that Gerard and the team have planned out, of course, any team could do that if they wish to do so.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fascinating. Is there anything, Ella, is there anything we missed or anything else you want to use this space to share visually, or just kind of final thoughts from you?
Um, all I would say is to anyone that's listening, if you've got this far, firstly, thank you so much for listening. For me, like, the whole point of doing this is because I really just want to leave a mark, basically. I don't expect anyone else to care. When they do, that's absolutely amazing. It's also absolutely cool when people don't, of course, because we're all different, right? But
Right.
I just want to thank absolutely everybody that's taken the time to sort of look into this and give it any thought at all, because it's really, really cool. You don't set off on these artistic journeys thinking about people at the end result. You think about what you're trying to do, and when people choose to come on that journey with you, that's something really, really special. So massive thank you to everybody that's listened, first of all, and also especially to the team at Vivid and my friends who've supported me along the way.
Yes,
Gerard,
so thank
you guys are awesome over there at Vivid. Like, we love the artists you're working with, Ella, and so many people. Is there anything you want to say to kind of top this off before we head out?
You put me in an anchor situation. First of all, thank you so much, Ella and Blue. Well, we're very happy to be able to do these kind of things, like to take the time of thinking about how to um, how to inscribe everything in the best way possible, and actually we need to thank the artists for allowing us that, because they understand how important that is and they trust us in order to make that part of the job. That for us is very, very important. So thank you. Well, for me, one recommendation for everyone that listens is just to be curious. Like, this work has so many things to explore, and not only this work, of course, there are a lot of generative artworks out there that are worth the shot. And but yeah, just take the time, explore everything, listen to the artist, and look on chain how things are done. Learn parent child. Very important thing. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody on this show, as Disco always says, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But generative art is so cool. So is art even financial advice? I don't even know. But thanks for
I
coming
hope
with
not.
us. Definitely follow Ella on X. It's bright_light art. And of course, Gerard and the whole Vivid team's incredible. Follow them at Vivid_ordinals, and you can learn about parent child and more Shadev and more beautiful art as we all kind of evolve it together. So with that, thank you, Ella, for coming on. This was a great show. I learned a ton, as I always do. And until next time, guys, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.